Court reconvenes, friends, because we have a sequel. 3 days ago, this desk took apart a primetime address about a Chinese election heist. The follow-up speech has now arrived, and it is bigger. 7 sweeping claims of election fraud, delivered from the same podium, wrapped around the same numbers, aimed at the same target: your confidence in the vote you are about to cast. Tonight, we do not argue with a single word of it. We just open the files the speech itself cites. Spoiler, jury, the files testify for the other side. The claims, stated fairly and in his words where the record has them: American voting systems are vulnerable. The election he lost was, he again suggested, rigged. Mail ballots are inherently corrupt. China obtained 220 million voter files. And Homeland Security, he announced, has identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens registered to vote. Official numbers, official agencies, a national broadcast. If those claims are true, jury, they are the biggest scandal in American history. So let us check every one against the paper it stands on. Exhibit A, and it is the speech's own footnote. To prove systems can be manipulated, the president quoted a January 2020 intelligence memo. Factcheck.org pulled that memo. Its actual conclusion, word for word: such systems would be difficult to manipulate on a wide enough scale to alter the election outcome. Read that again, jury. The document offered as proof of a riggable election is the intelligence community explaining why rigging one is nearly impossible. He cited the rebuttal as the evidence. Exhibit B, the 278,000. Homeland Security disclosed no methodology for that number, none. And for scale, jury, look at the chart. The Heritage Foundation, an organization that has spent decades hunting voter fraud, keeps the country's best-known fraud database, and it logs fewer than 100 non-citizens convicted of illegally voting or registering since 1982. 44 years. Under 100 convictions, against a claim of 278,000, produced overnight with no shown work. Nevada's Secretary of State, Francisco Aguilar, used the precise words, wildly speculative. The speech's proof by example fares no better. The Michigan 2020 case he cited as vote fraud was, per the officials who actually prosecuted it, employees defrauding their own employer for money, with no evidence that anyone voted as a result, and it was caught, in their words, because the system worked. The California date he brandished, July 10th, as evidence of a suspiciously slow count? That is the state's certification deadline, set by law, the paperwork date, not the counting. Every example collapses into its own citation, jury. The pattern is the exhibit. And now the sharpest contradiction in the whole night, because it comes from inside his own house. In the speech, the president mocked the finding that the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. Jury, do you remember who issued that finding? The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, his own government's election security agency, created to do exactly this job, reporting up to his own executive branch. The speech asks you to believe the referees, the intelligence memos, and the security agency are all wrong, and the podium alone is right. Cross-examination, in fairness. Vigilance about election security is not a vice, it is a duty. Clean rolls, audited machines, prosecuted fraud. Every serious democracy wants all three. And if this speech had announced a transparent audit with published methodology, this desk would have covered it straight. That is what makes the actual speech worse, not better. Real security work cites its evidence. This speech cited evidence that concludes the opposite, invented a methodology-free number, and mocked its own agency's finding. That is not vigilance, jury. That is vigilance's costume. So who benefits, and who pays? The beneficiary is the case for aggressive roll purges and new restrictions heading into the midterms, a case that needs official-sounding fraud numbers to survive contact with the public. The cost has a headcount: 278,000 registered voters, real people, flagged by a federal agency with no disclosed method, now standing in the blast radius of wrongful removal. And behind them, every voter walking into November told by their own president on every network that the machine they are about to use is rigged. Doubt, jury, is the product. The numbers are just the packaging. The verdict? False. And not by our measure, by the government's own. The memo says manipulation at scale is nearly impossible. The conviction record says fewer than 100 cases in 44 years. The prosecutors say the system worked. The security agency says most secure in history. 7 claims of a stolen system, and every rebuttal carries a federal letterhead. So when someone tells you the proof is in the government's files, jury, do exactly that. Read the files. They say the opposite. Court stands adjourned. I'm Madeline, and this is Pixel Politics.